Hello, welcome to the Joy Talk Show. We're so glad that you're joining us. So go grab your cup because we're going to fill you up.
Well, thank you, Cindy. I love your introduction. Today we have Cindy Sheridan and Tracy Rohr Irons and myself, Cynthia McCoy Brinkman. Unfortunately, Pam could not be with us today. She has a few things that came in the way of our recording session, so we're sad without her, but I know that this is going to be an amazing meeting. So, we're talking about the joy of gardening. And I just got off a phone call this afternoon talking to my girlfriend who's listened to this podcast a few times. And she said, "Oh, what are you recording today?" And I said, "The Joy of Gardening." And she said, "And you're hosting?" And I was like, "Thank you, love." She didn't quite
Yeah.
say it like that, but in the most loving way. She's like, "Oh, I didn't really think you were a gardener." And I'm like, "No, dear, I am not." And we were actually talking about how she's not a gardener and she has this preconceived notion that all these women right now are out there getting their hands dirty and gardening and doing all this stuff. And I was telling her that none of us, the four of us, know anything about gardening, pretty much. And she said, "Oh, makes me feel so much better because I thought I was the odd man out." She's like, "What are the odds that all four of you don't garden?" And I'm like, and I didn't want to break her heart, but tell her that I'm probably the most seasoned of the four of us as a gardener, and she knows I'm not a gardener, so that says a lot.
That's good.
Yeah. But this topic came up because I work with a doctor of naturopathic medicine, and we were talking about possibly having a guest on, and she's just brilliant. And last year, she had done a herb garden class, and I went to that and I loved it, and I was like, "Oh, it's so intriguing, all these plants that you can do wonderful things with." And I have actually gardened a little bit. These are some of my dried mint. It still smells like mint. And another one, I don't remember. I think it's rosemary. I'm not sure, but I have those. I've dried them because my parents did some gardening, some herb gardening. So I'm just fascinated with the herb part of it. But what happened was we had this topic, we were talking about it, and we thought we'd be the joy of gardening. And then we started asking about gardening, and we're like, no one's really done it. So, what I want to ask first, Tracy, when we brought up this topic, the joy of gardening, what images or thoughts came to your mind when the question was asked about
Yeah.
the joy of gardening?
When I was a kid, my grandparents gardened, and so I enjoyed watching their garden grow. And then after I got married, my husband usually grows a garden. So a couple years we had like a big garden. And one year he planted cabbage, and I had never seen cabbage grow, but they're so cute. They're so cute as they grow. And it brought to mind, remember those Cabbage Patch dolls? And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I get it. Because those cabbage plants are just so cute when they grow. So to me, what brings me joy is watching the plants grow and seeing what comes out and enjoying the thought of the amazing how things grow. And so that's what I enjoy.
I love that. And one of the things that's so cool, now I want to look this up and I will look it up on YouTube because I'm not growing cabbage, but the growth cycle and where the Cabbage Patch came from, the Cabbage Patch dolls, I never, whatever reason, I never put it together that it would be reflection of what cabbage looks like as it's growing. So now I'm very curious, what does cabbage actually look like that makes it cute as it grows? Because I never thought Cabbage Patch dolls were cute. And so now I'm probably going to find cuteness in them because of your information. So thank you so much. I love that. It's a great story. How about you? How about you, Cindy?
Well, when we first were talking about the topic of gardening, I thought, oh goodness, it brought back memories of all the times I've attempted to start a garden and then it just fails horribly. Like you have such good intentions, you're so excited, and you're not sure what you're doing. And then nothing happens. So I was a little nervous about talking about gardening, but then it reminded me when I was growing up and my grandfather, we all called him Papa. They had a home in Burbank, okay? And in the backyard, so it's like a suburb just outside Los Angeles. And in the backyard was like a little mini farm. He had vegetables, fruits. There was this enormous avocado tree, peaches, apricots, a grapevine, like everything. And I just remember enjoying eating the fruit and the avocados and the grapes and the peaches, everything. I was always amazed at how much was being produced in the backyard, and just so impressed by his green thumb. He was always out there tending to his gardens. And that's like one of my favorite memories of him.
I love that. And it's amazing how much you can create in a small space, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Burbank, I'm guessing he didn't have a 1 acre lot, which is still, even 1 acre is not very big when you think of massive gardens. So I love that. One of my funniest stories about gardening is when I grew up as well. I grew up in rural Minnesota and we had some gardens. I have stories about gardens, but that's what I knew a garden was fruits and vegetable, well, not fruits because northern Minnesota. So we grew up tomatoes, technically are fruits, but we went out into the garden and we got our fresh vegetables. That was a garden to me. So I came to the suburbs, and one of the pastors that I worked with was very much into gardening. And he said he was a master gardener and he won this thing for a master gardener. And I was like, wow, I thought you lived in the suburbs. It's so wild. And then he showed me pictures of his master garden, and it was all flowers. Oh, flower garden. Oh, okay. There's a different version of the word garden that I just didn't think of. And,
Ah.
it's just, and my parents did a lot of herbs and spices and they grew fresh herbs. And so there were herb gardens. And then Pam was actually talking about the gardening in your heart, the soil of your heart, and how you garden and tend to it and cultivate it, and that scriptural reference to it. And I thought, it is so interesting how we get stuck, just like my girlfriend did, in the sense of like all women garden. We get stuck in what we know and what we learned growing up. But the great thing about our minds is that they can expand and learn and develop. So, talking about developing, do you remember when you were little, did you ever plant seeds in grade school? Like in a little, yeah. Do you remember doing that? Do you have a story around it? Because I think sometimes we find these stories around these plants and it's so amazing.
I just remember, yeah, it was in one of those organic brown little cup thingies. And, I remember putting the seed in there and just amazed, like this little seed can produce like a tree, or a bush or whatever. It produces fruit. So I remember being young and just being fascinated with. Oh, I remember one thing: watermelon. Okay, the seeds in watermelon. I was always scared to swallow the seeds because I was afraid that watermelon was going to come out of me, grow out of me. Like, do you remember that as a kid? Like, don't swallow the seeds.
Make
You're
the
gonna
seed.
the watermelon.
The things adults would joke about with us, and we're like panicked as children having nightmares. I'm gonna have a watermelon in my belly. I ate a seed.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway, sorry. That just popped in my head.
no, I love that. I love that. What I love about it is that brought you joy. Like when I asked you like a memory behind it, at first you didn't have one, you just had joy bubbled up in you because I brought something up about something most of us have done in our childhood is plant a little seed. I was talking to a
Yeah.
young girl today who is doing that. So one of the things that you can do when you are gardening is bring the seedlings inside. You can actually plant your seeds and bring them inside with the right temperature and cultivate it before you bring it out to your garden. You don't have to buy a already grown plant. You can just do that from scratch and do it inside. And so that's what made me think of the. Do you remember doing that when you were a kid? How about you, Tracy? Do you have any recollection of that? Story in your life?
You know, I don't, remember doing it. I mean, it's like a maybe, it's like vague, but I don't remember specific about it. But we lived in a rural area, so it seemed like we would have done that.
Right? And you in rural area we see gardening, we have big gardening all the time, right? Well, if you were to garden, Tracy, I know you said you don't, your husband does. But if you were to garden in any of these ways, whether it be a flower garden or an indoor like solarium herb garden or something, if you were to, what do you think you might love about it, that process in it from start to
Well,
finish?
well, actually, a couple years I did help my husband in the garden pulling weeds. And I
Oh,
actually enjoyed that because it was like the knowledge that I'm helping these plants grow and pulling these weeds that are going to take nutrition away from the plants is a neat thought and feeling that I was doing something to help these plants grow. And it also then looked neat and tidy, so that was good. That was rewarding too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, my jaw dropped because I was like, you like weeding. I have another friend who likes weeding. My mom likes weeding. I'm like, I hate that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do it. Because I'm like, I'll plant it and I'll watch it come up and I may or may not water it. But I love like going out and being like, oh, look at you grow. But then it's weeds are growing up around it. I'm like, darn it, we've got friends that we don't want in this neighborhood. So like, can we get rid of them? And no, no, I don't like weeding. So I love that you love weeding. And the way you described it, Tracy, that makes me have a little bit more desire to weed the way that you said it. Like it's stopping the plant from getting the nutrient. I just love that. That was a beautiful description. Love it. Love it.
you
How about
can
you?
apply it to life,
Yeah.
helping each other. We can all have some weeds in our life, and
Mhm.
we need community around us to help pull those weeds out.
I
That's what
love
I
that.
was thinking of when you were talking about that, Tracy.
So
It's like
that's
really
good.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Do you have anything to add to that question, Cindy, or do you want to go on to the
About what I would love about gardening,
what do you think you might love if you did garden?
eating from it. And I like watering. Like I have one plant that I love to water once a week.
I love that. Minimal. Just keep it simple. Once a week,
Yes,
the plant, and it's
once a
joyful.
week. It brings me joy to water the plant. I don't know. I just look at it. I will take some time to dust the leaves, and I like it. I want to make sure it's thriving.
I love that. You're nurturing that moment with the plant. I have a really
Yeah.
sad plant story. This is probably one of my first plants that I grew. I generally killed everything that I brought into my house. And I needed to repot it. And I'm very scared of repotting because people say when you transplant a plant, you have to be very careful that it doesn't go into shock and die. And so this plant had been outgrown like for 2 seasons. And I'm like, I have to do this. And I just made a decision. I went outside and I couldn't find a container that was deep and wide enough. And I was so scared to pull it apart. And I took it out, and the roots had grown. It just needed to grow so badly. All of the little roots were growing around it. It had big, thorny, like almost like fingernails coming out. Like it was so desperate to grow. So I took it out. I was like, oh, so planty. And I put it inside this really wide pot. And I'm like, well, you can maybe spread out a little bit and then I'll be able to maybe tear apart this stuff. So I put them in there and it was too shallow. So then I mounded the dirt, and then we're in Minnesota and I left it outside and it snowed. And now Planty is fairly dead. And I don't know if he will come back. So he needs emergency room resuscitation. And I should post a picture because it is so sad. It is still sitting on my, it's so sad. But Planty is like, uh-uh. So he did not do well with my transplant. So I did not love and nurture him well enough. I was so scared to kill him, to take him apart. And had I done it 2 years before, probably he'd be fine. But now he is pretty dead. So sad. So sad. That is
Oh,
my plant story.
I'm sorry.
Transition. I know, I know. So that is not joyful, but hopefully he'll kick up. But one thing I want to say is like This is a question. Agree or disagree? In order to garden, I need to be trained. After hearing my story, you're probably like, yes, please train her.
Well, I think you can get some good advice. I don't know if you need like official training to be a gardener. You know, maybe they should issue gardener licenses. I don't know, but we'd have less dead plants and less dead gardens, maybe. But I think good advice from a Home Depot person or Walter Anderson nursery or something. But anyway, yeah, I think good advice is fine.
But we don't have to be officially trained. Although I may want to take a little more time and patience in my episodes. How about you, Trey? Agree, disagree, thoughts?
I think you have to be like big trained. I think it's helpful to get like the little basics as far as like planting seeds, how deep to plant it and like how often to water it and some basics, but you don't have to be a trained master gardener.
Yeah. So I am very much saying, like, I am evidence of training is important, but I am the risk taker who will just decide I'm going to do it. One year, I decided I was going to plant a garden from seeds. And so I bought an indoor, what are those things called? Atrium greenhouse, an indoor greenhouse. So it's this little greenhouse. And I bought the racks and all the little containers and I planted my seeds. And again, we're in Minnesota. And so when I thought they would be ready in May, I read the instructions. They should be ready in about May to plant. It was not time to plant in Minnesota in May. It was still cold and snowing. The ground was frozen. We hadn't had our first frost or second frost or whatever frost we were looking for. And because I read like the back of the seed thing, and the back of the seed package said this is good for this region, which Minnesota was in. And needless to say, I had to keep them. So I kept watering them and they were green. But when I took them out of the container, they had what is called root ball, which is something I learned in gardening, which is
Hmm.
much like Planty, who succumbed to root ball and transplant death, like definitely did not do that well. The roots can't grow anywhere because they don't have enough soil to grow in anymore. They can't expand.
Mm.
And so they roll up inside of themselves because they're going to keep growing. So
Mm.
what's really interesting was like, I'm like, well, it's still green and alive. So I planted it. And then my fruit grew in the kittywampus shape of how the roots had started. And I was
Whoa.
fascinated. It,
Wow.
yeah. So it was like, to me, that was a massive life lesson because we talk about how important parenting is and how important getting our roots, our foundation right is. And that literal evidence of planting this fruit, which was fine, I could still eat it and partake of it, and it tasted good, but it looked gnarly. Like, and it didn't grow to its full potential, right? It was like,
Mm.
you know, kind of a bent up pepper. Like it wasn't a pretty nice long pepper, but it was fascinating. So I do think, as much as I'm like risk taker, dive in, learn lessons the hard way, I think I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, I do think before you agree to do it for other people, perhaps you should have a level of training. Unless, and as long as you're okay with for yourself, it could be disastrous. Oh gosh. How about this
Mhm.
one? The only reason for a garden is to nourish.
The only reason to
No,
garden. Go
I,
ahead.
I think that like I was saying, watching it grow, that nourishes our soul, not just our bodies, but it nourishes our soul. And if you're just growing flowers, those are like the beauty to look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good
See, that's how I
perspective.
felt too. It was a trick question. It was a trick statement. I do believe the only reason is to nourish because you can always be nourished by it. So I do. I agree. I think it's amazing. And even like my learning lesson, like I was deeply nourished by these root balls that I created that did give me fruit to eat. I was able to use those peppers and plants that I planted, even though they were weird looking, they were still edible. So, and now how about this? Gardening is only for people who have a lot of time on their hands.
It's probably a benefit. I mean, it helps.
Yeah.
My grandfather was retired when he spent a lot of time gardening. Yeah, you could find him out there every day.
Yeah.
I think it would just depend. Like the people who love gardening, they're going to make time for it.
Mhm.
It's like my husband, he works full time, but he's still made the time to have a garden.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've done enough little hobbies here and there with gardening, but usually when I have a little herb garden, I plant out in front of my house so that I can step outside when I'm cooking and just grab some fresh herbs. And it really doesn't take a lot of time. I did talk to my husband this year about wanting to do a little bit of a raised garden so I don't have to weed. I'm really against weeding. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, he's like, why do you need a raised garden there? And I'm like, because then there's less chance for weeds. Because it's just the small container it's in. So I'm very much against weeding. But now, with your loving suggestion, Tracy, I might want to weed this summer.
But I only helped a couple years, so that's
Don't get
That's
too
good.
excited about that.
I didn't make a career out of it.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, I want to say there can be a lot of joy in gardening, no matter how much effort you put into it and how good you are at it. I think we all have the opportunity to, like you said, partake of it, whether we do anything with it or not. If you go to a restaurant, you're enjoying the bounty of someone else's work of gardening from the food. If you go through an arboretum or a flower garden or go drive past a master gardener's lawn, you're going to see the beauty and get to partake in it. So I do think that you can always find joy in gardening, whether you doing it or not doing it, whether you're talented like my friend who made a career out of naturopathic medicine and absolutely knows a ton about food and herbs and flowers and everything and what they do. It's fascinating to listen to her. Or if you're just a hobbyist like me who's willing to grab a packet of seeds and take a risk. I think there's just a lot of fun ways to garden. So that's my
Yeah,
thoughts.
or if you like going to the farmer's market, I love seeing all the fruits and vegetables at the farmer's market. That's like my favorite thing. May
Do you
not
have
be a gardener, but
a lot of farmers markets in San Diego? Are they like everywhere?
they're, well, yeah, I think almost every city in San Diego has their own little farmer's market. Maybe once, there's some cities that do it twice a week. Like in Little Italy, they have a farmer's market twice a week in the morning.
Wow. Do you
Yeah.
have one that's a really big one, like with a bunch of?
That would be the one in Little Italy, which is downtown.
Okay.
Downtown. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you,
Lots
Trey?
of farmers.
Yeah, they have farmers markets around here.
Yeah. Yeah. Our farmers market is huge in Minneapolis. Um, it's not all fresh farm stuff. Like some people just literally get this secret being told. Some people literally order like boxes of peppers from Cisco or whatever, and they put them out and then they put them in a basket and they're selling them and they did not grow them because they don't make that a rule. But in St. Paul, that farmers market, you have to grow them. So there's a little bit of a difference. But Minneapolis is cool because it's got these really large covered stall areas essentially. So it's got a roof and they're open air stalls. And there's hundreds of vendors. So there's I think 3 rows of all these different vendors. So you get to know after a while who's gardening and who's you start recognizing difference with the fruit. And then there's clothing and there's jewelry, there's a massage therapist there, there's music, there's food like that grilled and coffee shop. So it's like this really like a big outing. So I really like that. That's fun. To me, that's another fun part about farmers markets. Love that. Yeah.
Yes.
So, ladies, do you have anything that you want any listeners to walk away with when they think of the joy of gardening?
Just,
Come on,
do what you
comedian.
love.
I wanted to share some things I found that help plants grow. Some household items, and this is very interesting. Coffee grounds help plants grow because they're rich in nitrogen and improve soil structure. They're great for acid-loving plants like tomatoes and roses. Eggshells provide calcium, which helps prevent blossom rot in tomatoes and peppers, and also deters slugs. Banana peels are high in potassium and phosphorus, which strengthens stems and supports flowering. Use these by burying chopped peels in the soil. Epsom salt helps tomatoes and peppers when the soil is magnesium deficient. The ash from wood raises soil pH and adds potassium. This is good for acidic soil. Composted tea boosts beneficial microorganisms and improves plant vibrancy. Club soda, this was interesting, contains nutrients like phosphorus, potassium, and sulfur that can benefit plants. Aquarium water is nutrient-rich from fish waste and acts like a mild fertilizer. It's said to use fresh water only, which I assume means don't store your water and use it later. Baking soda helps the flowers bloom and can help prevent fungal growth on tomatoes and lilacs. Vinegar lowers soil pH for acid-loving plants like azaleas and rhododendrons, but caution, it must be diluted. And another thing you can do is have your soil tested, like at gardening centers. They'll test your soil and tell you what your soil's lacking.
I love it. Start small. Yeah. Well, I think it's great to just sit around and talk with you ladies. It honestly fills my heart so much. And whether we are good at something or we're not good at something, the opportunity to just sit with you and have a chit chat of any topic just fills my cup. Yes.
Yes.
So until next time, we love you. We want to play with you. So come listen to our podcast and, you know, let us fill your cup.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Joy Talk Show. We hope it inspired you to nurture joy-filled, meaningful connections in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who could use a little more joy today. We'd love to hear how this conversation touched you. Reach out anytime at joytalkshowpodcast@gmail.com or visit joytalkshow.com. May your days be rich with meaningful connection. Until next time, keep filling your cup until we can fill it together.
Feel the rhythm of your beats. Joy